I just find it so interesting that in 2016, she was vacationing with friends with somebody who is linked to J.E. I've seen her name pop up several times in the file.
Meghan Markle, the reason why you watch her interviews and she just seems off, she's owned.
Unfortunately, that confirms what I've been saying or thought for the last few years, that sadly, Meghan never really had any intention of staying in the royal family. She saw it as a stepping stone, getting married to Harry, to new fame and fortune. And I think that's what initially Prince
manipulated and sucked in he is by his wife. I mean, Candace, he still believes that Meghan had no idea who he was. He says multiple times in the book, she's never Googled me. She's never Googled my family. She has him wrapped around her little finger.
Meghan Markle is in a state of absolute high-definition panic right now. The Duchess of Montecito has spent the last 5 years building a brand out of organic linen and speaking her truth. But that truth is currently being shredded by a leaked federal file that was never supposed to leave the DOJ's secure server. As you guys probably know, the Sussex narrative is usually a fairy tale about escaping a stiff monarchy to find a life of independence in California. But get this, the internet is currently passing around a document that suggests the independence was actually a $4 million business transaction. We're looking at what's being called the control receipt, a file that has everyone asking if the most famous love story of the decade was actually a highly orchestrated corporate handover. Let's be real for a second. You can sell all the lifestyle jams you want, but when your name is listed next to a 7-figure valuation in an Epstein-related database, the lattes start tasting a lot like a cover-up.
What's interesting, though, reading the book, you can just tell how manipulated and sucked in he is by his wife. I mean, Candace, he still believes that Meghan had no idea who he was. He says multiple times in the book, she's never Googled me. She's never Googled my family. She has him wrapped around her little finger. And that's not to say that Harry shouldn't take the blame. I've always said right from the start, I think they are both to blame for their actions. But he is manipulated by her, is he not?
Absolutely. And what's so funny about that is Meghan is a trained actress. What she does is that she studies people. She's not a good actress, but she is a trained one, right? She's been doing it her entire life. And there was no doubt that she studied Princess Diana. She studied her mannerisms towards Harry when he was a boy and the way that she grabs her face. And this is the psychopathic elements of what she does, putting a pregnancy text next to Princess Diana's hair, saying that she put her hands on the grave to have a conversation with her, bursting into tears. And she has convinced, there's a thing called in psychology called the Freudian transfer. She has convinced Harry that she is Princess Diana, except this time he has an opportunity to save her. That is the truth. And it's worked, right? So she's done this convincing performance for Harry that I don't know how I ended here. I just love you. And I'm just like your mom. And the one chance that you have to save your mom again, when he recounts that tale and the things that she said, she threatens homicide on her unborn child and suicide on herself. And then she convinced Harry that it was his idea to leave the UK. No, of course, if you threatened to commit suicide and homicide against my child, you basically said to Harry, you need to do something radical or I'm going to take my life. And that something radical was to leave the UK and to leave the royal family. And yet he believes that this was his own idea and not that these ideas were manipulated and planted into his head by Meghan. As I said, he just isn't very bright. He actually believes everything that she says to him. And unfortunately, I don't see how he can get out of it because he's got no one around him. It's a perfect example when you learn about abusive relationships, isolating someone entirely from their friends and their family, making them believe that their friends and their family are the enemies. I mean, these are classic signs of an abusive relationship. She has accomplished all of them. Getting him to speak loudly, speak out against his family. I mean, what late stage of victimhood is he in right now? So he is. I'm angry at her.
One comment that perfectly captured the energy said, "We thought it was a romance, but it looks more like a recruitment." Most people are still arguing about who made who cry at a bridesmaid fitting, but it goes even deeper than that. Because while the public was distracted by the tabloid drama, a man named Marcus Anderson was reportedly operating in the background, pulling strings that lead directly to the most notorious network in modern history, Marcus Anderson. If you don't know the name, you aren't paying attention. He's the man often called the King of Soho House, the mysterious best friend who was at Meghan's side long before she ever laid eyes on a prince.
And it says you should check Meghan Markle. And basically she posted some photos of Miss Meghan Markle with Karina Shuliak, who is also considered to be J.E.'s girlfriend, who was also a dentist. And there's been some crazy theories going around about what they did in that dentist chair, if you haven't already dug into that. So here's the photo. It says it's from August 2016. We have Meghan Markle over here with the hat, and we have Karina Shuliak right here. They are on a yacht somewhere. Now, there is another photo of them at a dinner where you will see right here, this is Karina Shuliak and this is Meghan Markle, not too far away from each other. I just find it so interesting that in 2016, she was vacationing with friends with somebody who is linked to JE. I've seen her name pop up several times in the files, including the Harvard emails. She was getting the key to his Harvard office and said she will have to go over details with the girls. So she is clearly a part of coordinating efforts with these girls. So the fact that she is on a yacht by an island with this close in vicinity with Markle, having dinner very close with her, what's the connection there? She was a main person involved in that operation. And where is she now? And we can't forget that there is a Prince Andrew connection to all of this, which is Harry's uncle. My mind is going too much. Now, I do want to say that I have not found any files with her in it, but the fact that she was this close and vacationing.
Allegedly, Marcus wasn't just a friend, he was the bridge. He's the one who reportedly facilitated the meeting at Soho House, Toronto in 2016. But hold up, Soho House isn't just a club for people who like aesthetic interiors. The owner, Nick Jones, is a name that appears directly in Jeffrey Epstein's unsealed black book. The DOJ releases from early 2026 confirm that Nick Jones' venues were a frequent haunt for the Epstein inner circle. You're telling me that a woman who supposedly had no idea who Harry was just happened to get fixed up at a venue owned by an Epstein associate by a man who manages the guest list for the global elite? You can connect the dots on that yourself. Think about it. Tom Bauer, the man whose investigative biographies make the palace staff shake in their boots, has been sounding the alarm on this for years.
Is that Meghan has huge ambition.
Gone on record claiming that Meghan's rise wasn't a series of happy accidents, but a meticulously vetted operation. According to Bauer's reporting, Meghan had a very specific plan before she even landed in London. Allegedly, she was being coached on exactly how to appeal to Harry's specific vulnerabilities, his resentment of the press, his grief over his mother, and his desire to be a hero. Bauer claims she was vetted in a way that suggests a professional agency was behind the curtain. But it gets even more uncomfortable, because while Bauer was talking about vetted plans, the DOJ was quietly sitting on a document that put a price tag on the whole thing. Now let's talk about leaked documents. This is the document that has the Montecito mansion in lockdown mode. It surfaced under the Epstein Files Transparency Act, and it's a record from March 11, 2020. That is the exact moment Megxit was being finalized. The file explicitly names Prince Harry and Meghan Markle and attaches a figure of $4,125,000. Now, the official story is that this was just a publicity value estimate for a media article. But the internet is saying something much more explosive. Allegedly, that $4 million wasn't an estimate of fame, it was the payment Meghan received to transition Harry out of the royal family and into a specific sphere of influence in the United States. It was the fee for controlling the asset. You think the $4 million is the climax? You're not even halfway there. Because the real scandal isn't just that money allegedly changed hands, it's the timing. Every step of the Sussexes' departure from the UK aligns perfectly with the DOJ's internal tracking of Epstein-related influence operations. Tom Bauer has pointed out that Meghan's transition into the royal family was suspiciously smooth for someone with zero background in diplomacy. But once she had Harry in California, the smooth act dropped. Suddenly, he was isolated from his brother, his father, and his entire support system. One viral post from January 2026 claims that Meghan was hired to serve as a handler, ensuring that Harry remained a useful validator for specific US power players who needed a royal face to mask their own associations. It's almost dark humor at this point. One day she's on a stage in New York talking about digital safety, and the next, her name is being read out in a federal report about the most dangerous man in the world. It's a shift from humanitarian icon to alleged operative that has left the public reeling. People want to believe in the finding freedom narrative. They want to believe that Harry is a man who finally found his voice. But $4 million is a very specific amount of voice to buy. It makes you wonder if the freedom Harry found was actually just a different kind of payroll. Hold up, it gets even darker when you look at Marcus Anderson's continued proximity. He was there at the Invictus Games. He was there at the wedding. He is the ghost in the machine. Allegedly, Marcus is the one who keeps the lines of communication open between the Sussexes and the gatekeepers of the global elite. Tom Bower has hinted that Marcus's role is far more significant than just club manager. He's the fixer. And when you pair a fixer with a $4 million valuation in a trafficking database, the fairy tale starts looking like a very professional contract. The internet is saying that Harry wasn't saved. He was acquired. The gatekeepers are currently in a state of absolute chaos. Since the 2025 document drops, there's been a frantic effort to rebrand the $4 million as a routine media calculation. But as you guys probably know, the DOJ doesn't usually spend its time calculating the media value of Yahoo articles unless those articles are part of a larger pattern of influence. One comment that perfectly captured the energy said, "They're trying to bury the receipt, but the Transparency Act is digging it up in 4K. They want you to focus on the Netflix deals and the Spotify cancellation. They want you to argue about the bench. Because as long as you're looking at her children's book, you aren't looking at why a sex trafficking task force was tracking her publicity value to the dollar. You have to ask yourself why this specific figure, $4,125,000, is sitting in Dataset 8, a collection of files specifically curated for the Epstein investigation. If it was just about fame, they'd be tracking the Kardashians. If it was just about royalty, they'd be tracking Prince William. But they were tracking Meghan, and they were doing it at the exact moment she was moving the prince to a compound in California. The internet is asserting that this wasn't an estimate of her reach. It was the documented cost of his removal. You can connect the dots on that yourself. We are currently waiting for the next tranche of DOJ releases, which are scheduled to hit the portal through the end of 2026. This isn't a one-day news cycle. This is a multi-year demolition of a manufactured image. Allegedly, there are phone logs from March 2020 that show Marcus Anderson was in direct contact with several names that appear on the Epstein flight logs, right as the Megxit deal was being inked. If those logs are unsealed, the $4 million publicity value will be impossible to defend as a coincidence. But here's the thing that really has people uneasy. In March 2026, a new property record surfaced showing a private security firm, one with direct ties to former DOJ investigators, just set up a satellite office in Montecito. They claim it's for general executive protection. But the internet is saying they aren't there to protect the Sussexes from the public. They're there to protect the gatekeepers from what happens when the control receipt finally gets explained in a court of law. Meghan can keep dropping lifestyle products. Harry can keep doing polo documentaries. But as long as the DOJ files exists in the federal record, the question will never go away. Why was she worth $4 million to the people investigating Jeffrey Epstein? Why was her publicity being tracked by the same task force that brought down Ghislaine Maxwell? The gatekeepers are staying quiet. Marcus Anderson is staying in the shadows. Tom Bower is waiting for the next drop. And while they wait, the public is finally starting to look past the organic lattes and into the ledger. Because once you see the receipt, you can never unsee the transaction. We are not even close to the end of this.